Jamie Dimon, CEO, says this may be the worst and most dangerous time that we have seen in decades. There's been several leaders in the free world that says, are we looking at World War III or the end time scenario? Are we seeing biblical changes? So today's video, we're going to talk about that. Scenarios that we're in America now, but then also we're going to discuss, are we really looking at biblical end times? Let's jump into it today. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but let us know what you think about this content. Remember, when you give us a thumbs up, when you are subscribed to the channel, when you comment below on this channel and the Max Life, you are entered in the giveaways each and every month. This month, we're giving a $500 gift certificate for the mobile range coop that we featured on this channel and also the Max Life. Also, check out the Max Life vlogs. We actually take over the camera today. Me and the kids, Misty is sick, so we had a good time just doing things around the farm. So let's jump into content for today. Are we looking at biblical end times, and is this the most dangerous time to live in history? First, let's talk about the worldly part of this, not the spiritual part, but the worldly part. The part that Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase CEO said. We're living in the worst times because of a few things. Well, economically, we're seeing our inflation still not really be where it needs to be. Interest rates keep climbing. The Fed came out and said they probably will have at least one more rate hike, which will again affect our economy. Also, we are looking at two wars that could end up being more conflict for the whole world, which will push us kind of into a big war. I don't know if it'd be War III, but it could be very, very tumultuous for the world. We're seeing accesses made. We are seeing powers split. We're seeing good versus evil talks. You're seeing more of those paradigms happening. So therefore, you're seeing a very volatile time in our history. Now let's talk about a few more things when it comes to the worldly part of it. Our border, ICE came out this week and said our border has had at least 5.6 million immigrants come across that they know of. That's not counting the ones that are not being registered. That's not counting the ones that have snuck in. That's also not counting the rest of the year. So in those numbers of 8-9 million, that's probably true for a whole year. An average year, 8 or 9 million illegal immigrants coming in our country. There's been Chinese nationalists. There's been several military-age fighting men. Are we building our own sleeper cells in America, all in the name of winning votes? This is the Democrats now, because this is about winning votes. We're seeing America's stockpile of ammunition's down. There's a story that Rich Lowry wrote, says America desperately needs to ramp up a weapons production now. Now, no matter if you believe in war or not, we should have a healthy stockpile. I think personally you should, and also the government should, so that shows that we have the strength and power to do what we need to do to make sure that we can defend our homeland. However, we're selling and sending and giving a lot of our stockpiles away. Ukraine is estimated needing 1.5 million shells per year. They are firing 6,000 shells a day. That means they are using that much ammunition. Well, guess who's funding a lot of that, giving a lot of that away? It's us. It's America. Washington has supplied already 2 million artillery shells to Ukraine as of July. The United States is only making 14,500 shells per month now. Ukraine is using 6,000 per day, and we're only making 14,000 a month. That's absolutely unsustainable, not only for Ukraine, but also now a conflict with Israel. Also, our own stockpiles that we're depleting. It says that we are now trying to double that for 2023. However, we're hoping to get to 100,000 per month. Now, a few things to think about. Why are we ramping up so much? Well, because we're having to give so much away, and because of all these wars. We're fighting proxy wars. That's a wrong approach. So it's making us very vulnerable. Here's another thing to think about. All the while, Russia and China have been doing this. They've been stockpiling way quicker than us. Russia's in a war. China is looking to go back into Taiwan. Are we really financially or militarily prepared to fight another battle? No, we shouldn't be in the ones that we're in now. However, we're already making moves towards a Taiwan situation as well as Israel and Ukraine. We are setting up for World War III, and America is not defensively and militarily ready for that. Not on the biblical end times yet, but worldly, our campuses, they don't remember. They were not taught 9/11. They were not taught the dangers of terrorism like we've seen. They've heard it, they've seen the war in Afghanistan, however, they've never seen the true repercussions of what terrorism is doing. 50% of colleges and college-aged individuals are split on supporting Israel or Hamas. Now, first of all, as I said, this is not really our battle. It's a spiritual battle that we cannot really understand and comprehend. However, if 50% of our college-aged kids, our Gen Zers, are thinking that they can support Hamas, a terrorist group, or the pro-Palestinian movement, I think we're in a very dangerous, precarious spot, because we are, again, as Americans, saying that we're supporting a lot of this terrorism to keep on happening. It blows my mind. And it comes down to the fact that we're not educating our children right and seeing the repercussions of alliances, but also seeing the repercussions of terrorism all around the world. They don't remember 9/11. Most of them were either kids or not born yet. And guess what? They were not taught, like we were taught in school, history and the dangers of alliances or dangers of enemies. They were not educated in some of these things. So therefore, they are supporting terrorism. We have members of Congress supporting Palestinian and terrorists and Hamas and Iran movements and not Israel. Areas like Dearborn that's supporting that. So are we seeing the most dangerous time in our history? Well, we have no military, no defense. We're spending way too much money. We have no economic stronghold anymore. Even big bankers are saying the same thing. Our colleges are falling to pieces, and we have representation that actually believes in terrorism. Our borders are not closed. So that shows right there we're in a very dangerous, precarious time in America's history. Now let's move on to the fact, are we looking at biblical end times? Think of Gog and Magog wars, where you hear about Russia, Ukraine, you hear about Turkey, you hear about Israel. That time could be coming soon. Now, we don't know if we're in the biblical end times, but we do know that America is losing power, which kind of shows in the biblical end times. It also shows the West together are still strong, but when we're talking individually, like Great Britain and the West and France and us, we have no power. It's only when we coalesce around together. So we're building this kind of global attachment to the West instead of it being America or the UK or France. We're putting this coalition together. NATO is getting stronger. They're trying to grow. So therefore, you're seeing a more globalist approach, which kind of shows biblical end times. We thought there was good news when Trump did the Abraham Accords, and there was more coalescing peace treaties in the Middle East. Not necessarily showing peace. There was still going to be terrorism. There was still going to be little bombs and conflicts between either the Muslims or Muslims and Jews. There was always going to be little conflicts. However, overall, there was more peace in the Middle East than we ever saw. However, that is gone now. The deal between Saudis, America, and Israel has been canceled. And now Saudis is siding with Iran. Iran is working with Syria. Iran and Syria are working with Russia. So we're setting up with a very tumultuous time in the Middle East. So we talked about the fact of the worldly view of the Middle East and how dangerous it is in the time that we're living in. Now, on the biblical side, we're literally seeing end times play out, where the West is losing strength, the focus is back on the Middle East, and even the Russia-Ukraine conflict is now maneuvering into the Middle East because of Iran, because of Ukraine saying we're like the Israelis, because Russia's influence and impact with Iran and the ammunitions that are coming from there, the drones, all that plays into each other. So when we thought Russia-Ukraine was separate, we thought China and Taiwan was separate. China has a great relationship with Iran too. What are we truly looking at in the Middle East? Are we looking at end-time scenarios? Are we looking at a true World War III? Again, we don't know that. But here's what I would say. As someone who wants to live sustainable and as a prepper, as someone who wants our family kept safe. I live in rural Mississippi, so I don't see a lot of this stuff going on around us. So we tend to put our proverbial head in the sand. A lot of our people in our towns don't see the bad education. A lot of times in rural America, they don't see the fact that no one has, enough self-defense tools. Because, like, for instance, if you hear in the background, it's hunting season here and people are going crazy for the opening days. So we don't see that. However, if we blind ourselves to it, we are doing just like everyone else, and we're missing out on what's really happening in the world, and we're also missing out on the spiritual aspect of what's really happening in Israel and with Palestine. The scary thing is, if Israel is being so bad, why is the Palestinians not able to go into other Arab countries? Why are other Arab countries not taking them in? Why is Hamas being backed by all these bigger players such as Iran and Syria and Hezbollah? Because they're all playing for a bigger chunk of land. They're all playing for a spiritual battle. They're all wanting pawns. They're wanting Palestinians and the Hamas to be the pawns in a bigger scheme. Do you actually think Saudi Arabia, do you actually think Egypt, do you actually think Hezbollah cares about the people of Palestine or the Gaza Strip? I don't, because if they cared about it, they would be evacuating them and getting them out of there. But they're not. They want them to be a pawn in a bigger situation. They wanted the Saudi and Israeli agreements to start falling to pieces. They want the Abraham Accords to go away because they want war. When Muslims want war, then they can do more things for the caliphate. They can do more things in the day of jihad. They could do more to hurt the people of Israel. Now, the problem is that's where it becomes very spiritual, and that's where you start seeing, well, is prophecy being fulfilled? Are we seeing a Gog and Magog war? Are we seeing World War III? Are we seeing nuclear threats? Well, we're seeing all that. So now let's go back home. What should we be doing now? First of all, when you're in places like me, where I don't see a lot of that other than what I see on television or what I read, we have to say, okay, spiritually, we need to make sure that we are living as much like Christ as we can if we are Christians. We have to say, okay, we can't just look at news and just take an opinion poll. We shouldn't want killing or death on anyone. However, we are seeing a battle on the war side, and on the worldly side, we're seeing on the spiritual side. Well, we have to gain wisdom to say, okay, how can we look at this in the best way possible? As a Christian, I don't want to see war. However, as a Christian, we know that wartime is coming because it shows it in prophecy. So we need to prepare ourselves to make sure that we're ready if it comes here. We're seeing more and more signs of a weak America, which means can that battleground maneuver from Russia, Ukraine, from China, Taiwan, from the Middle East over to our shores? It should scare us a little bit, but also it should show that our cities are already having issues. If colleges and cities are having pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas rallies, what's to say you're not going to actually have conflicts here the same way you had conflicts over there? Well, that actually, the Middle East and our adversaries like Russia and China, I imagine they want to see conflict here because then that makes us look weaker. That makes us have to deal with our own battles and not have to look at them. So are we looking at worldly dangers and end-time prophecy? Well, if the America stockpile is low of self-defense tools, you need to be stocking up on that. I made a purchase this week. We'll talk about it in another video, but I want to make sure that I'm covering myself when it comes to defending my home. The reason the Hamas people were able to go into Israel and murder so many people, guess what? Most Israelis don't have self-defense tools in their homes. They don't have pew-pews. If they did, would it be different? Would it be different? And so if we're talking about our own homes, if we can defend ourselves and defend our homes, then would it be different if we saw all-out attack on America? It could be. But the question is, are we defending ourselves? Are we buying the things that we need to defend ourselves? Sadly, we're not teaching our younger generations the importance of freedom. We're not teaching the younger generations the importance of allies. We're not teaching the younger generations the importance of taking care of our families. We're showing that they can be lackadaisical, they can be lazy, they can stand up for terrorist groups, they can have the freedom to hate other people. Those things are what's taught, and they're not learning, and that indoctrination is going to actually put us in the same precarious spot I think that most other failed nations are in. So we're seeing a weakened America, we're seeing very strong conflicts all across the world. Now, we can physically prepare like that. We have to spiritually prepare. I would challenge you to seek wisdom in all this. You're going to hear so much propaganda. You're going to hear so much psyops. You're going to hear so much information dealing with one side or the other. And if we're not knowledgeable and wise and trying to seek common sense, I believe we're going to be skewed and we're going to just follow whatever everybody else is telling us. Look at the colleges, look at the cities, prime examples. Look at the border that's not closed. We talk about it. We talk about the dangers of it. However, nothing's getting done. You know what conservatives need to hit on? They need to hit on the border and need to hit on Israel, pro-Israel talking points. Both of those things are struggles for Democrats because there's a lot of Democrats who still support Jews. There's still a lot of Democrats that want to see a closed border. So the more they hammer on those two things, I believe you're going to see a stronger conservative movement. But if conservatives keep talking about going to war and conservatives keep talking about how they need to spend money at Ukraine, if conservatives keep doing those kind of talking points, they're going to lose and we're going to see America fall. We're going to see an America go even further in the toilet and we're going to see more world problems. The reason end times prophecy and the reason people talk about World War III is because when the solution to the answer is always America being stronger and being the city on a hill, the shining light. When we have a leader who can't close borders, who can't even speak half the time and trips on stairs. For instance, twice yesterday. Twice he tripped on stairs. That weakened approach for America is going to make for the most dangerous time for us, and also it signals end-time prophecy and World War III threats. It all goes together because of weak leadership. And I know I know some people are like, oh, you're just a fearmonger. I'm not a fearmonger. Look around you. Is your life better? Is anything that you are dealing with in your life better? No. So when things are not better, then you prepare more physically, but also you prepare more spiritually. You say, you know what? It doesn't seem like we can go any further down than what we're at. It seems like we have no answers, but we do know who has answers. And again, that's God. That's Christ, our spiritual prepping. So I challenge you. When all else fails, when the world looks like it's facing World War III or major conflicts, or there's no money, there's no ammunition, there's no anything, you feel like you're just lost and you're just walking around in a cloud and a fog, then remember, we have to rely on Christ. We have to rely on the spiritual preps and the wisdom that we can gain from that. All this stuff is talked about in the Bible. You don't have to believe me. Just go read it for yourself. It talks about Russia. Talks about the Middle East conflicts. It doesn't talk about America, shows how weak we are. So all those things are really showing up. This is the most dangerous time that we've ever lived in decades. This is a very World War III threatish time of life. Our history, and the only way that we're ever going to get out of it is revolution and revival. We need revival, we need revolution. And that's some prepping that I think that's something that we need to do. The only way that you're going to get out of it is we make an about face and change from what we're doing. We've got to repent, we've got to revolt, and we've got to revive. And we've got to quit picking fights with everybody else and build strength here. When we build strength here, we become that seat on a hill, that shining light, and I believe it will help guide other countries to be wise. And also when we are strengthened, things like the Middle East tend to calm down. You don't see these wars and conflicts as much. So I challenge you. First of all, be praying for your nation. Be praying for the most dangerous time in decades because you're raising family. You're raising children. That's my biggest fear, is not only my health and my safety. I'm not even worried about that as much as I'm worried about my children. I'm raising 6 children in this crazy, crazy world, and I want to make sure they're safe. So I want to take care of us physically, but I also want to take care of us spiritually. I want to be praying, God, please change all this stuff going on. Help us as a nation be better. So I hope our eyes are opened, and I hope we see this is the dangerous time that we're living in. This may be, in times, something very biblical. But the only way to fix that and the only way to live through it is spiritually prepare, pray for our nation, seek Christ, seek wisdom. Don't be so captivated by all the talking points, because there's a lot of psyops and a lot of propaganda going around. Focus on truth. Seek truth for yourself and prepare for your family. Guys, thank you so much for watching. God bless. Have a